Arche Tuning has done a lot for skill-based Descendants, igniting a fresh interest in players to go out and try them again. This alongside the Inez nerf means a lot of people have started looking for that next best mobbing character to take a place, and while Bunny always will be a strong contender, I'm about to throw another hat into the ring for the best mobber right now, and that's the Descendant named for Inez to be brought in line with. So in today's video we'll be looking at the latest 4 builds for you to use for Freyna, covering bossing, farming, DPS and even speed, and even if you don't have her ultimate just yet, not to worry, 2 of the builds included are ones even her base form can make. Of course, if all that sounds good to you, then let's get to it. Now the best place for us to be able to kickstart this off is by having a look at every single one of the 4 builds and then be able to talk about what modules make them up and what makes them so special. Now we're going to be kickstarting things off with the all reliable, the all consistent one, and that is going to be the farming build. And the reason why this is so consistent is going to be due to her red Transcendence mod of Contagion. Now if you haven't used Contagion before, essentially this takes away some of the extra damage over time that you're going to be applying with all of your skills, but it makes it so you have that consistency and you're able to apply this over a much wider range when it comes to battlefields. Now this is going to be a fantastic build for being able to use on like defense missions and everything like that. If you just need to cast one skill and wipe out a whole room, then this is going to be the build for that. Now how we make this and the main kind of things that we want to lean into are going to be maximizing the amount of damage, especially when it comes to skill power modifiers. We also want to go into range, we want to go into cooldown so we have our abilities back a little bit faster. We also want a little bit of duration as well because we kind of want that DPS to kind of like stick around, and this also helps it when it comes to enemies that then spawn additionally after the fact, because those puddles that exist on the floor, it's going to be making so they can stick around a little bit longer. Perfect for when they spawn right on top of it and then get that room 0 trauma applied and just restart the process all over again. Now we go into this by going into a little bit of sustain first, so we do have our increased HP, we do have our cooldown modifiers when it comes to MP conversion and nimble fingers. We also have focus on tech that's going to be helping that out a little bit more, but mostly when it comes to the damage side of things, because we have all that skill power modifier that's going to be applying to all our tech skills, and that is going to be our skill 1, skill 3 and our skill 4, so that's going to be a really nice way. We have power increase and toxic amplification to give us the biggest amount of skill power increase in terms of like DPS without affecting our skill cooldowns, so that's going to be the best way there. We have skill expansion and amplification control to give us the most amount of skill effect range that we need nowadays. It used to be a case that we needed maximized range, but now because of the Arche Tuning as well as the combination of the reinforcement, we do not need that. We can actually hit max just from doing this. So as you can see here on the item card, we're already hitting that 300% max expandable range, so we do not need maximized range anymore, so we can actually save on that skill power modifier that we would have lost out on. Lastly, to finish off the DPS side of things, we do have Decimator. This is going to be playing really nicely into Freyna's playstyle, so it's a fantastic way of being able to keep all 10 stacks up, which gives us an extra 50% skill power modifier right there. Lastly, just to round it all off, skill extension is just going to give us that duration talk about than what we would talk about shortly ago. So that's going to make it so that those stick around a little bit longer. It also means that when it comes to the elite side of things, the ones that are a little bit more stubborn, the DPS and the damage over time is going to stick around just on them, just enough to be able to actually finish them off so we don't have to cast any more additional skills. So that wraps it up on the farming build. Let's swap it on over to the fast Colossus build, and this one changes because we are now going into an ultimate Freyna build, and that's because we're going to be using Venom Injection. Now if you've seen this build before on my ultimate guide when it came to Freyna, there have been absolutely 0 changes to this so far when it comes to the modules. That's because this build doesn't need any changes. This is the better ways to be able to increase the amount of damage, because this is going to be pure DPS right here. There is 0 sustain when it comes to it. We do have Battle of Stamina granted, but we are primarily using this for the skill duration, which is going to be helping us out with our skill 4, just to make sure we crank out all the shots that we kind of need to be able to shoot out, just so we aren't wasting any when it comes to like waiting for that skill duration just to end. But Venom Injection is a fantastic red mod and can only be used by Ultimate Freyna, so if you do have the base form, unfortunately you cannot use this right now. But Venom Injection is going to be changing as skill 2, which used to be a defensive skill. Now it changes into that much more of an offensive skill, and what it does is you toggle this on. Because we are going to be running a deathless build because of overwhelming shield, it means we're going to have that max 66% skill power modifier right off the bat, but it also gives us some nice like sustain when it comes to toxin resistance and shield recovery per second, but that's neither here or there because we don't actually have a lot in the first place. But mostly we are focusing on that corrosion, which is that toxin resistance reduction of 25%, so every single shot of our venom baptism, every single time our putrid venom or our venom trauma ticks over, it has a chance of being able to apply that corrosion, and that means that that enemy is now going to have a 25% reduction to their toxin resist, meaning that we're now going to do even more damage. So The main kind of focus with this one is that we are primarily using our Venom Baptism. We want to use this in a single cooldown. We have maximum amount of shots, which we'll be talking about a little bit later when it comes to our components, as well as our weaponry side of things, and we just kind of like want to burst down the boss as fast as possible. Now we do this through a combination of maximized skill, to be able to give us the biggest amount of increase to skill power in combination with toxic amplification. We do also have dangerous ambush, which is going to be another huge amount of skill power once we manage to get that Colossus kind of like stumbled, staggered, whatever you want to call it, on the floor, kneeling down, etc, etc. And we also go into an overwhelming shield build because that is going to give us the deathless one, and that allows us to be able to benefit from not just the full kind of potential of what Venom Injection is going to be doing, but also into our component set wise, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later. Now swapping on over to our DPS Mobbing build, this is going to be a nice little kind of like combination between just like max DPS as well as being able to have that sustain. So this is going to be a nice little like blend build. If you are looking to be able to go into some harder content, if you are struggling a little bit to stay upright, this is going to be the one for you because you are still cranking out those numbers, but you are also being able to have that nice durability as well alongside it. Now we go into a deathless build with overwhelming shield. We also have the sustain with increased shield and increased HP to crank our numbers up as high as possible. With going into Distorted Resolve as a component set, which we'll talk about very, very shortly, this allows us to be able to get over that 11,000 like shield mark, which is quite nice as a number, and then on top of that, Venom Injection is also going to give us 5% of that every single second back, so it's pretty much almost impossible to be able to kind of like go down unless you are chucking yourself in the middle of like a bunch of enemies or something like that, and you are pretty much trying to get yourself killed. This will absolutely be able to carry you through the rest of the level. We still go for cooldown, so we do have our MP conversion on Nimble Fingers. We still go for skill expansion as well as amplification control because range is highly important when it comes to Freyna. We still go for maximized when it comes to DPS as well because we are going for power increase, toxic amplification, and focus on tech, which is going to be doubling into a skill power modifier and also giving us extra cooldown as well, and that allows us to be able to spam some of our abilities, and as you can see, those are the kind of cooldowns that we are currently dealing with. Now the last build is going to be this Speedy Poison build, and this one is one that I've just been having so much fun with recently. This allows me to be able to complete 400% in probably record time. This one is going to be the one I would recommend to be able to replace that of what Inez was doing before, and the reason why is because the amount of range that we're now able to get on Venom Synthesis, not only is it going to be increasing our movement speed, which is what Inez was also really known, like kind of well known for, so we're able to get that kind of bonus as well. We're also applying loads of DPS behind us as well, which then also has the chance, because of our passive, to be able to leave behind toxic puddles, and the toxic puddles are going to do even more DPS on top of that, which then is going to be applying even more kind of like, it's just kind of nutty as the amount of like spread this essentially has, especially once you combine it with Venom Trauma. You just kind of like fill a room just with your massive like movement speed, and then combine it with by shooting Venom Trauma. There's not a lot that can pretty much stand up to this, and this was even on the Shelter, which isn't a toxic skill power boosted level, so it's kind of nutty as to how good this build essentially is. I would highly recommend that you do actually pick this one up and give this one a go if you are trying to complete 400% as fast as possible. There's not a lot that's really changed. It is very similar to that of the farming build, but the main kind of focus is that we have gone for Venom Synthesis, so we've lost a skill 3, which is a ability that we can cast outwards. Instead, it's going to be giving us that boost, and we can then just start running around the place and just leaving all those footprints to be able to apply it on a much kind of like bigger scale. We then also go into things like all of our cooldowns, so we do have our MP conversion, Nimble Fingers, increased HP, we have gone for power increase and toxic amplification once again, maximized range when it comes to this side of things, but not the skill, not the module maximized range, but we have gone for skill expansion and amplification control to help us there. Decimator is also going to be helping us skill power modifier wise, skill extension to be able to help us with the amount of movement speed duration that we have, as well as being able to apply that toxic footprint, as well as all the extra DPS and damage over time that we'll be applying. Overall, this is a fantastic build, and I highly recommend that you do pick this one up. Whether you have base Freyna, whether you have ultimate Freyna, this is still a lot of fun to be able to run, and this is probably going to be my go-to when it comes to 400% going forward. So now that we've got the module side out of the way, let's start talking about the gear, and this is where we're going to start talking about reactors. Now, it used to be a case that you did want to go for a toxic skill power boost ratio and a tech skill power boost ratio with a tactical rifle mounting. And to be fair, this is still a fantastic combination because this is one of the better ways to be able to increase the amount of DPS you'll be chucking, because this maximizes out on that kind of like function. But it wasn't until I picked up one of these recently from Sigma Sector where toxic mechanics with skill cooldown and either a toxic or a tech skill power boost ratio. Now, as far as I understand in the community, tech skill power boost ratio would be ideal, but toxic is still fantastic. But going into that gold skill cooldown is going to make it so that we have our skills back really, really fast. It's going to be fantastic for everything to do with the build. It just allows us to be able to get up to about 80% skill cooldown when we combine it with our Arche Tuning. So going into that is just it just means that we're like 10% away from cap when it comes to it, and it just allows us to be able to spam our skills wherever we need it to. So while we can get away with just casting one ability and just letting it do its work, we can speed up the whole process by just absolutely spamming our abilities, and I absolutely love being able to go for a skill cooldown on my Reactor, and I haven't looked back since. Now, external components wise, there are only really two sets that you kind of ever want to really kind of chuck into a Freyna. It depends on the type of build that you will be using. For example, there are a couple of builds that I've just talked about that didn't use Overwhelming Shield, and there are a couple that did use Overwhelming Shield. If you are using the Overwhelming Shield, you absolutely want to go for a Distorted Resolve. The reason why is because not only does this have fantastic rolls, every single piece of these has max HP, so we're off to a great start right there. Once you get the 4-piece equipped, though, it also increases your skill power by more than what the Slayer set is able to do. From how I understand it, you actually get both benefits of the 14.3% if you do have 1 HP, which is kind of nutty to me, which I suppose it makes sense. You are going for a Deathless type build, but going for that 28.6% increase to your skill power is going to be more than what Slayer set is offering to you, so therefore Distorted Resolve is a fantastic set to be able to go for. It does have extra things alongside it. It does have it has a chance of being able to give you extra shield every time you inflict debuffs on enemies with a 15-second cooldown. And then it also has Exaltation, which got recently changed, so it now hits other enemies, but it does so little damage, it's just kind of like neither here or there. But Distorted Resolve is just fantastic alone, just for the fact that it all has HP rolls, as it's kind of like main rolls when it comes to the pieces. Now, if you are looking for the rolls that you do want to go for when it comes to sub rolls, you do want to go for max HP once again, but anything to help you out with MP, any kind of like resistance is probably also good to go for. So in this case, auxiliary power, this is probably best in slot. Going for the memory, once again, possibly best in slot. Shield recovery in combat is one that I've been messing about with recently to be able to help me out, like extra sustain. You could go for a defense, you could go for electric resistance or anything like that, but MP recovery modifier, as long as that's in there, you're pretty much good to go. When it comes to processor, toxic resistance probably the best because it does have a little bit of synergy when it comes to venom injection, but outside of that, that's about it really. And then lastly, when it comes to Distorted Resolve sensor, going for MP recovery as well as max MP is going to be fantastic rolls. Now, if you are going for the non-overwhelming shield builds, then you can still go no wrong than going for Slayer. Slayer is still a fantastic set, and it's been around since the game pretty much launched, but yeah, that increased the amount of skill power is fantastic. On top of that, you also have Slayer with rounds per magazine with the 9%, which is pretty huge because that does give you extra shots into your skill 4, which is kind of nutty. We'll be talking about rounds per magazine a little bit later when we get onto the weaponry side of things, but it's just a great way of being able to help you out with your skill 4. It's also going to be increasing the amount of damage your skill 4 can do. So going forward, bossing side of things, it's really, really good, but it also helps you out, of course, with your skill 1 and skill 3 to be able to do some really nice damage. So if you are going for the non-ultimate Freyna builds, then this is going to be the way forward. Slayer is still fantastic. If you are going for the ultimate Freyna ones because of how good Venom Injection is, then I would recommend going for Distorted Resolve. So now we get to shift on over to the weaponry side of things, and while we do have some really nice ones that we can use as like backup weapons to be able to take down elites, the main one that you're ever going to really ever concern yourself with is going to be Secret Garden. Now these are the roles that I do have on here because we do go for extra kind of like speed. We do kind of want to use this as a stat stick, so that is going to be increases to our grappling hook charge time. Sprint speed is going to be massive for us. When it comes to the red mod, you absolutely do want to go for critical hit damage because this is a crit machine, and that is going to be shown inside the builds as well. The main reason why you want to use this is because this is ideally a stat stick. It's going to be as you start casting your skills, you will get additional skill power because of how pest control works when it comes to this weapon. But when it comes to the build side of things, you can build it several different ways, but there are going to be 3 mods that I would recommend that you keep on your mobbing side of things. Now it's going to be Expand Weapon Charge, Compulsive Magazine to be able to increase the amount of bullets that you have in your mag, but this also translates across to your skill 4 as well, so as long as you have this in your hand, you will get additional shots on your skill 4, so your ultimate, by having these two mods on. And then also Brisk Walk is going to be a fantastic way of being able to help you out with the mobbing side of things, because this is going to speed up your ways of being able to walk away through kind of like levels, similar to like how we have with Inez, for example. By having Brisk Walk on, it doesn't require you to be able to hit with your gun. You can absolutely get this to be able to trigger by landing your skill attacks, and because it has a 10-second uptime with a 15-second cooldown, it has some really nice uptime when it comes to this, so it's a really good way of being able to speed your way through some levels, and this allows you to be able to make your way through as fast as possible. In terms of like anything else to build around it, because sometimes you do need to be able to shoot your gun. For example, there are certain elites that have immune phases that have to be broken through shooting the weak point. Then I would highly recommend that you do go into firearm attack as well as critical hit rate. So in this case, we do have the two firearm attacks right there. We do have critical hit damage, better insight focus to help us out with critical hit rate, and then fire rate concentration is just helping us out a little bit into kind of like both aspects, increasing the amount of damage that we can kind of like chuck out. Now, if you are looking for a loadout to be able to use into the fast Colossus side of things, then we do have two recommendations when it comes to that. You will need to be able to swap this over a little bit. Now it's a case that we kind of need 4 mods to be able to help us out here. So you can kind of like pay no attention to these 6 right here, but it's these 4 right here in this L section right here that are going to be the best ones to be able to go for. The reason why it's fire rate up as well as sharp precision shot when it comes to the fire rate aspect of this as well will translate across to the skill 4, so as long as you're holding down the trigger, you will eventually ramp yourself up to be able to get all maximum fire rate, so you will be firing out even more shots in a shorter amount of time. And then we also have the expand weapon charge and compulsive magazine as standard to be able to increase the amount of shots that we do have with the skill. You can go for a different kind of take on this, and you can go for spray and pray. So for example, if you land a critical hit, which is where Secret Garden is fantastic for, after you land that, you can then activate your skill 4, do a roll so you get rid of the animation, you just kind of like cancel that side, and then every single shot that you'll be firing out of your skill 4 until the 3 seconds are up is free. It won't cost anything out of your ammo side of things, and then because of fire rate up as well as expand weapon charge and compulsive magazine, gives you even more shots to be able to kind of like fire off. Feel free to be able to mess back and forth between what kind of like these 2 builds that you kind of want to be able to go for. Spray and pray is still a fantastic mod, as well as sharp precision shot. Both of these are really good ones to be able to mess about with. You might be able to squeeze out a few more shots if you can get into the reload, get like the animation cancel side of things, if you do go for spray and pray. Feel free to be able to mess about with either one. Like I said, both of the mods are the X shape anyway, so you can swap those back and forth as you please. So swapping on over to the Arche Tuning, I'm not going to bore you, I'm not going to insult your intelligence by saying, oh, you need to be able to build it exactly like this kind of shape or anything like that. What instead I'm actually going to do is, you can see the shape that exists on this board. I'm going to just focus on the main kind of points. So in this case, we do go for maximized skill power to be able to help us out with all the extra damage that we can chuck out, because this is a skill-based build, so we kind of want to go into as much as possible. So we do have 3 nodes right here that are going to give us the biggest amount of increases, and we do grab as many of the blue nodes as well to kind of like help us out there. Going for skill range is going to be fantastic, and this allows us to be able to hit cap really nice and easily. So I do recommend that you do take that path instead of being able to go for the Colossus attack. Of course, if you do go for the bossing build, you can absolutely go for Colossus attack instead of going for range, because you don't need range. But because this is the mobbing side of things, that's pretty much what you want. Out of the 2, when it comes to MP recovery or going for skill cost is so minuscule that it's just pointless. Why is it even there? The numbers are just that low and abysmal. So I would recommend going for MP recovery out of combat instead. That allows you to be able to restore all of your MP before you then get into your next fight, and then work your way up, increasing your MP and then getting the skill cooldown. That allows us to be able to get you to some of the snappy cooldowns that we've talked about earlier in the video. And then lastly, just kind of like cap it all off, you do want to go for skill duration up, which is going to help you out with all the puddles. It's going to help you out with the damage over times and then staying on enemies and things like that. And then the last 2 points you can mess about here if you want to go for, if you're okay with like sustain, if you're okay with being able to maintain everything when it comes to HP wise, then this is going to be the best route for you to be able to get the enhanced mana leech modifier to be able to, so you get your MP back a little bit faster. Alternatively, you can take these 2 mods off and you can go for enhanced max HP, and that will give you a little bit more sustain when you're inside the fight instead. So that leaves us on to our last category, and that is where the Inversion Reinforcement is going to be making its way in. Now, to be fair, there isn't much that kind of really affects skill-based builds when it comes to Freyna. Of course, we do have Circulation Tactic, which allows us to be able to get 24% skill cooldown for 10 seconds on a 25-second cooldown. You could go for this. Don't get me wrong, you will only get a benefit of 10% though, so you are going to be overcapping if you do go for this mod. So there are other things that can really kind of like round off our sustain instead to be able to help us stay in the fight and give us a little bit more DPS. I would recommend that you still always go for a focus round because that allows you to be able to trigger the enhanced focus rounds, and that then reduces all attributes in resistances as well. So that is a great way of being able to increase the amount of toxic damage. So if you go against like a boss, you can put down your puddles, you can then shoot them to be able to stack up this up to 5 times. They will take increased damage over time because of the toxic that you'll be shooting. We do also have biodensity augmentation, which is going to help us out as we start killing to be able to get up to an extra 50% HP, so that gives us a little bit more sustain right there. And then lastly, I have gone for Adrenaline Rush. When defeating an enemy, you just get even more movement speed. This allows me to probably get close to the cap. So it's just a really nice way to be able to alternate between like Brisk Walk, be able to go through all my stats when it comes to Secret Garden, being able to go for Speedy Toxin build where I can put down my Synthesis to be able I can trigger it on myself to be able to get even more movement speed. I've got Adrenaline Rush. It just means that I'm just kind of like go fast all the time, and I just really love that when it comes to these kind of builds. And with all that out of the way, that wraps it up on my breakdown for the latest Freyna build. Easily challenging for the best and most versatile mobbing character right now. While the Colossus damage compared to weapon builds right now does suffer a little bit, she more than makes up for tackling the rest of the content, making it look this easy. But this is a section I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Season 2, Episode 2 so far? Who do you think is taking Inez' crown for best mobbing Descendant right now? And lastly, which Descendant do you want to see get a new build guide on next? Let me know all that and more down below. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video, and as I always say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well. I'll see you all on the next video.